Hi, I'm Stephanie from the EliMonster.com. We make PDF sewing and knitting patterns that you can purchase, download, print out, and start sewing or knitting right away. Today, I'm going to show you how to make this adorable little drawstring bag, fully lined, reversible, that you can use for knitting projects, which is what I'm going to use mine for, or since it's close to Christmas, this makes great reusable gift wrapping. We're going to be using Michael Miller Fabric's newest line, Bunny's Garden. It features bunnies hopping over picket fences, some stripes, some floral prints, and an adorable scattered vegetable fabric that is perfect for fussy cutting. It comes in two colorways, pink and gray, which I'm going to be using today, or a primary color. This tutorial is also brought to you by sewingportfolios.com. It's a free and worldwide website that you can join, upload images of past projects, and connect with sewing-related businesses worldwide. Okay, let's get started. For this project, you need 3 different fabrics because I'm doing kind of an upper and lower outer print and then a solid lining. So I am using Hopping the Fence, and you need 2 12-inch by 12-inch squares for the lining. I'm using Little Nibbles, and it's that really cute vegetable print that I had mentioned earlier, and you need 2 12-inch by 5 5/8 inches tall pieces for that. That will be the outer upper. And then I'm using Happy Trails, and it's this really cute kind of a not exact, slightly wavy, but more straight stripe for the outer lower section, and you need 2 pieces that are 12 inches by 7 5/8 inches. And then you need 1 yard of ribbon or cording. For this particular project, I had like the perfect shade of green bias tape, so I'm just going to stitch the open side shut, and that will be my cording. If you use anything lighter than quilting cotton, I would suggest 2 pieces of 12 inches by 12 inches, lightweight fusible interfacing, and that will just keep the bag a little more structured. You don't want it to be too floppy. You don't want it to cave in on itself. So let's get started sewing. Okay, before we start sewing, let's check our thread color, because I almost started sewing with bright red thread, and on white and pastel fabric, that would have been pretty disastrous. So I switched it all to white. It's just something good that you want to check before you start sewing. And then the next thing you want to do is make sure that your fabric is right side up, or determine an up. I'm going to say that this is up because I like that this row of carrots is pointing down, and to me, this looks up to me. So we're going to make sure that we have up on our upper fabric, and if your lower fabric is directional, you'll want to do the same. Since mine is stripe, it doesn't matter. So this is up. We're going to find our lower edge right here, and we're going to place it on our lower outer fabric. Right sides together, line up the edges. You can pin at this point if you want to. With quilting cottons, I feel like they don't slip or slide much like satins or silks do, so I don't use pins, especially if it's just a straight line like I'm doing right now. So we want to sew along the edge using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And my machine has this handy thread cutter button thing feature on the pedal, which I love. And then open it up. It looks great. We're going to top stitch this to make it a little neater. You can determine if you want the top stitch on the upper portion or the lower portion. Really, it does not matter. But what you want to do for this example, I'm going to top stitch on the stripes. So you want to take this over to your ironing machine and open up your seam allowance and press it towards the stripes, towards the lower, because then when I top stitch, it'll catch that seam allowance and it'll just keep everything in place. So I'm going to go and press this one, and then you want to repeat it for the other side, for the other two pieces of outer fabric, and we'll come back and we'll assemble. Okay, we're back from pressing, and like I said, I wanted to press the seam allowance towards the lower side, so in my case it would be the stripe side, and I'm just going to go and top stitch, I'm going to say about 1/8 of an inch away from this original seam, and we want to do that to both sides. Side one done. I'm not even going to cut the thread right now. I'm just going to go straight through to the other side. Cut our thread, and we'll want to take some scissors, separate the two. And there we go. And it's really nicely top stitched, and it's all one unit now. So from now on, this is just going to be considered one piece, and this will be considered one piece, and then we have two lining pieces. Okay, now that everything's sewn, we are going to create notches in the bottom that will help form the bottom of the bag. So what you want to do, you want to take your two lining pieces, and this is obviously directional, so this is the top, this is the bottom, and so we're going to concentrate on the bottom corners. So we want to make sure that all of the bottom corners are all on the same side. So then we have our two lining pieces, and then we're going to line up our two outer pieces. The edges. There we go. There's one. There's the other. Okay. They all line up within a fraction of an inch of each other. We do not have to worry about being super exact. Part of the fun of sewing is just creating, and if it is a millimeter off or a 32nd of an inch off, it's okay, because your finished project will still be great and no one will notice that it's a tiny bit off. So I like to line up all four pieces together just to make sure everything's even. Like I said, if it's a tiny bit off, it's okay, but we also don't want it to be super drastically off. So I'm going to cut a 3-inch square. So I have my quilting ruler, which is a very handy tool, and I lined up 3 inches with the corners, and I'm just going to take my rotary cutter and I'm going to cut a 3-inch square out of the bottom two corners. And if you do not get quite to the middle, take your scissors, or quite to the corner, you can take your scissors and just cut up to that middle. But for the most part, you have some really nice straight edges. So all four pieces are cut and they're all the same. It's a really nice time saver. Let's do the same thing to the other side. Again, we're going to line up 3 inches. So here's a 3-inch square with my quilting ruler, like that. And I'm going to cut both sides. And I don't want to overcut, that's why I have the scissors. So I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to just look right up to that edge, making sure you don't have any overcuts. There we go. So now we have our basic bag shape. And you could have cut this in the very beginning, but I like to do it once the outer pieces are assembled and then just do them all together at the same time. Okay, everything is now cut and ready to assemble. This is really easy and fun part. We will separate our lining pieces from our main pieces, and we want to turn our main pieces around so they are right sides together. Just like that. I have it upside down, but no big deal. So first we are going to sew across what will be the bottom of the bag. So we're going to sew these two pieces, again, using a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, now that we've done the bottom, we're going to do both sides. All right, now it's starting to look like a bag, but it'll look like a bag even more in just a moment. So we have the bottom and the sides done. What about these squares? We want to pinch the corners of the squares and open them up. So it's now flat, and we want to line up the two flat sides. And I'm going to kind of finger press the seams open. You don't need to do this step, but I like to. We're just going to finger press them open. It makes it a little nicer and a little neater. Okay, let's sew this corner. Let's do the other side. And within 30 seconds of started sewing, you actually have what appears to be a bag. And it's pretty awesome. So now we're going to do the same thing to the lining. Look at that. We have another basic bag shape. Our next step is to put the two together. So what we will do is we will keep the lining inside out. So here's the right side. We're going to keep this inside out, but we're going to turn the main bag right side out. Make sure everything's straight. Okay. Now, I'm going to go in with my thumb and my pointer finger. I'm going to find these two corners and I'm going to line them up with the two corners of the lining. So we'll find these two corners, line them up, there we go. And then we will do the same thing to the other side so everything is all nice and straight, and you'll see that your side seams Here's your side seam for your outer. Here's your side seam for your lining. So it looks like everything is lined up right now. We'll line up the top. And now, since things are getting a little trickier, there's a lot more going on right now. If you want to pin, you definitely can pin. Again, I'm not going to, just because it is another straight line. But I'm going to find the middle. So here's the middle. I'm just gonna eyeball it. It looks like it's, yep, right there. Right there's the middle. I'm going to start 1 inch past the middle. There we go. Here's 1 inch past the middle. I am going to sew all the way around until you get to 1 inch before the middle. So you're going to have a 2 inch opening. And this time the seam allowance is going to be 1 full inch. So remember that, 1 full inch for this seam allowance. And if you have a marker, most sewing machine plates have a guide. I'm going to use that as a guide. Otherwise, a really handy trick is to use tape. So measure from your needle 1 inch over and then put a piece of painter's tape. Painter's tape is wonderful for that. And then you can just line up the edge of your fabric with that 1 inch mark on the painter's tape. So I'm just going to sew all the way around, leaving that 2 inch opening. We are back to 2 inches before the point we started. I forgot to do this on the beginning of the stitch, but you will want to tack those stitches. So I'm just going to reverse the stitch for about 3 or 4 stitches. And that secures your stitch. So now we have this whole bag with the top around. We're going to reach in into our 2 inch opening and turn this whole bag right side out. Look at that. So now we have outer and lining, and we'll just open this up and tuck the lining in. Just like that. So now we have this really nice bag, but this really kind of sloppy, not very finished off top. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the top, and we'll make sure that everything lays really nice. So I'm going to go over to my ironing board and I'm going to press that, and I'll be back to show you. Look how much nicer this looks now that it's all pressed. It's very nice, it's very neat. It looks very finished at this point. We still have the 2 inch opening right here that we did not sew in order to turn the piece right side out. This is where the magical part is. This is where your cording or ribbon or whatever you use as a drawstring is going to come out. So we don't need to hand sew this, no ladder stitch, no invisible stitch. This part is done. What we're going to do to finish off this bag is going to sew another seam 3/4 of an inch away from the top, and that will capture the loose end of the fabric, so it doesn't fray and it doesn't come out of this opening. Everything will be finished off and beautiful and neat. So let's sew that line right now. And for this, I'm going to take the arm off. This one's big enough, you don't have to, but I thought it would be easier to show you guys. So I'm going to find out where 3/4 of an inch is. And again, if you don't have marks on your plate of your machine, just move your tape 1/4 of an inch in. And again, I can even feel with my finger where that fabric stops. And so you just want to make sure that the needle is catching what will be 1, 2, 3, 4 layers of fabric. So let's just go all the way around now. beginning, let's go about 3 or 4 stitches into our original stitches just to lock them in place and make sure that they don't come out or come loose. And now the body of our bag is completely finished. All we have to do is thread the cording in. If you chose to use ribbon and it's polyester ribbon like most ribbon is, you'll want to take the end and just kind of run a lighter across it. That will melt the edges and keep it from fraying. If you use bias tape like me, you'll just want to use, in my case, green thread this time. Just run it through your machine. Make sure that, it's secure, and then we'll thread it through. So to thread your cording, ribbon, whatever you're using as a drawstring, I like to take a safety pin and push it through the end, just so you have something really nice and strong to thread through. At any major sewing store, you can buy a special tool for this, but I find that the safety pin does just as good of a job, and I usually have a couple of them laying around, unless my kids have been in here and are sewing, and then they are all missing. Okay, you're all through. Let's even out our tails a little bit. There we go. Remove the safety pin. And then all you do is cinch. And tie. Let's tie this into a nice bow. And at this point, if you find that your tails are a little bit too long for your liking, you can definitely shorten them. I think I would shorten mine for this case. But there is a handy little bag to hold your projects or gifts or small odds and ends pieces that you need to keep together. And it's super cute. I want to see a bunch of these under your Christmas trees.